up, yo? Welcome back to Forever Backlogged, the show where I review my gaming backlog for your viewing pleasure. Thanks for tuning back for another episode. It means a lot. No, really. I'm honored. Or am I? That's right, for today's episode I'm finally covering a game that's not likely to feature in anyone's top 10 list, so is not as likely to get me in trouble. That being said, be prepared for a fair bit of me gushing over this one. But let's have our introduction first. Dishonored was released back in 2012. It was published by Bethesda and developed by Arcane Studios, whose previous most notable work was on Dark Messiah of Might and Magic, some involvement in Bioshock 2, and... Oh dear.
Oh dear.
It was generally very well received on its release and widely considered one of that year's best games. Dishonored is a first-person action-adventure game with a focus on stealth mechanics. I would even say, and I'm sure I'm not the first nor the 100th person to have come to this conclusion, that the gameplay feels very much like a...
Fusion!
On the one hand, you have the first-person weapon superpower combo from Bioshock, and on the other, the stealth and non-linear lethal/non-lethal problem-solving of Deus Ex Human Revolution. This is not me saying this game is on the same level as Bioshock, or even that Human Revolution invented stealth play, just that it was hard for me not to associate Dishonored with those two while playing through it. The setting is simple enough. On the plague-ridden city of Dunwall, you play as Corvo Attano, set out to clear your name of the crime you've been framed for by corrupt government officials who sought to overthrow the Empress Jessamine, taking power for their own selves and leaving you to take the blame for it. You are aided by an underground resistance who would see power restored to the faithful heir and guided by a mysterious character calling himself the Outsider, who bestows on you your special abilities, all the while leaving his true intent up in the air. Okay, so let me start off my review with this. I had a blast with this game, and the way I had fun with this game is what really made me want to talk about it. I can't remember the last time I enjoyed a game so much without any one great strength to point to. I mean, as I just said, at its best, I could not stop from thinking how much this game reminded me of other games, which isn't in and of itself bad, especially when you draw inspiration from other greats. Rather, what made this such a great experience for me was how this game did a whole lot of other smaller things right. Starting off with the obvious, I really liked the art style throughout the game. The over-the-top character design features, the dark broody colors, the overall look of this 19th century London-inspired setting really suits and accentuates the tone of the game. The way the glimpses of otherworldly technology and mystic elements blend seamlessly into this background is also something I enjoyed. As for gameplay, like I mentioned, you set out to take revenge on the people who framed you. So, for every mission, you're given a target in the form of a high-ranking official until you've systematically gone through all those responsible. You may go about accomplishing this as you see fit, whether that be in a stealthy, non-confrontational way or brute-forcing your way through the opposition. So far, nothing new there, but the first thing to take notice is that even your eventual mission targets can be taken out in non-lethal fashion. There is a, often creative, way for you to successfully take care of your objective without ever needing to actually kill any of them. I found the dichotomy of this delicious because your missions usually consist of you making your way through countless enemy sentries, patrols, checkpoints, and hidden paths, and then finally you're faced with the very target you've come for. What I found really fun was that the immediate contrast of, I could kill this guy right here, right now, or I could tiptoe around, discover how I can do this without any bloodshed and actually set it up. I liked how the game pitted the immediacy and the planning of your final act for each mission against each other. Even though it won't always be cut and dry like this every time, sometimes you will stumble upon the non-lethal design before you make it to the target, but still, this is one facet of the game I really appreciated. And the game will take into account how you actually go about things, meaning the amount of violence and casualties, here classified as chaos, and modify the world accordingly without ever punishing you for a right or a wrong decision. Instead, the changes are more subtle, like new dialogue trees, character paths, or affecting the onset of the plague with more rats and plagued individuals. It also affects the eventual outcome of the game, but again, without classifying choices as right or wrong. Your playstyle will also reflect on the development and leveling of your characters, as you can choose special abilities and skills to cater to however you want to approach the game. And here too you have a disguised amount of depth, meaning you end up using for each style what would look like a small skill set over and over, but without it ever stop being fun to use those same few skills or feeling like they ever stop being useful. For instance, the blink ability. It allows you to teleport over short distances and, if memory serves, is the very first supernatural ability you're given access to, but oh man, it never got old to wisp around rooftops, windows, and most of all confusing guards and getting around enemy barricades. Speaking of getting around enemies, another great little detail is how, to account for the wait times for planning your route around the sentries, guards will break out into fully fledged conversations so as to not feel like you're just waiting in a void. Often these will also have small nuggets of information for you that help bridge some of the gaps in the plot or just fill you in on some of the lore. And not just guards, you will find these from other completely missable NPCs as well. I also want to mention how this game provides you with a multitude of different solutions for each objective. You're probably saying to yourselves, well, this is nothing new, a lot of games provide you with open-ended problem solving. In my opinion though, this was done especially well in Dishonored, and I'll try and explain why. It's kind of difficult to put into words without it sounding like just some minor thing, but here goes. The pathfinding felt very natural and intuitive. Lots of games have you look for ways into certain areas or buildings, only for you to find that the most obvious choices from a strategic viewpoint are dead ends or just invisible walls. Here, the ways in which you can progress towards your objective just feel logical. Nearly 100% of the time I would look at my end goal from a distance and think, if I was a real dude with actual superpowers, I would try to get in there through that ledge and then over that balcony or in through that sewer pipe, etc., only to find that it was totally possible. Furthermore, after I got where I needed to be, I would see all the other possibilities of getting in and think, oh, that would have been clever, or man, it would have been so cool if I had thought of that first. In other words, this game rewards you for thinking in rational, real-world terms, rather than having you adopt a video game frame of mind, which says a lot for a game that has you prancing about as a supernatural master assassin. Another pleasant detail is how the hideout you walk around in between missions actually feels like an inhabited headquarters. It's large, has most of your allies walking around in a very organic manner. It gives off a very homely feel after a while, where in a lot of other games it would be a single room or a hub menu. Also, the way you're dropped off by the character of Samuel the Boatman for every mission always makes for a savory introduction, making each endeavor feel unique. Lengthwise, I also feel the game struck a perfect balance. It plays to its own strengths very well and ends before the action starts to feel stale or repetitive. It does not overstay its welcome at all, where it's very common to see games like this stretched out just for the sake of it. It also does not try to force any plot twists in order to prolong the action or insult your intelligence with unrealistic courses of action. For example, when your allies, the Loyalists, present you with a list of people who framed you that you must take out over the course of the game, that's it, you take care of them, that's the game. No attempt to stretch stuff out with a surprise twist of, turns out the one responsible was so-and-so all along, you still have to finish him off, you've seen a million times before. I thought that was very refreshing to see anyway, maybe some people will be left wanting more. Dishonored does have a couple weak points however, so let's get into those now. Most notably, the plot, or in this case the lack thereof. It serves its purpose in the way that it gives you a motivation to go from A to B, but it's one of those stories straight out of a Van Damme revenge flick that can be summed up in a single sentence. They framed him of a crime he didn't commit, now he's out for revenge. Also how most of the lore is fed to you in the form of journal entries and news tidbits in a way that makes it much more of a chore than an appealing discovery. It doesn't help it was almost mind-numbingly uninteresting to begin with. Now that last part may have just been my own perception, and hey, it might be that I was just burned down on big expensive worlds, having just come from Final Fantasy VII, Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2, but for the life of me I couldn't be bothered to read through any of the lore, nor did I feel it appeal to me whatsoever. It's a shame really, because it's obvious that a lot of love went into creating some of these fantastic characters, and I feel there were loads of potential for a great story to be told here, given this gorgeous setting they created. Overall, this game stands on the strength of the sheer amount of smaller things it does so well versus the gap left by the disappointing story. And the importance you attribute to plot in a game like this might spell how enjoyable it is for you. I'll be the first one to tell you that I appreciate the fuck out of video games that can deliver some good plot to go along with strong gameplay, given the right genre of course. With Dishonored though, I was left more of a feeling of disappointment over what could have been, rather than it taking away from all the fun I had with it. Bearing all that in mind, should you move Dishonored up or down on your backlog? Despite fitting most of the criteria of a game that I would tell you that is okay to move down, not dated in the slightest, no real spoilers to speak of because, like I just mentioned, the plot is so linear and predictable there's really nothing to spoil. Despite all of that, I'm inclined to tell you to move it up. If you're a fan of the stealth genre, or if you like the combination of gunplay and superpowers from Bioshock, or the idea of open-ended mission objectives is appealing to you, or hopping around rooftops as a mystic-powered assassin sounds like fun, or if even just any of what you've seen in the video or that I mentioned left you wanting to play this game, I'd say go for it. It's not getting old anytime soon, so don't worry about setting it aside, but if it looks like this is a game you'd enjoy, more than likely you're going to enjoy it. Oh, and one more thing, if you can get your hands on an edition that comes with all the DLC on the cheap, I definitely recommend it. I've played the Knife of Dunwall expansion so far, and I really liked how it added a new protagonist with a very different take on the gameplay. No doubt I'll be coming back for the rest as soon as I get any itch to get back into this game. In the end, despite my own up and down backlog system, you could boil it down to, well, it's hard for me not to recommend you try out a game I had so much fun with right away. That's the end of another episode, guys. Let me know if you liked Dishonored as much as I did, or feel free to tell me that I'm just insane. Or let me know if you plan on playing Dishonored if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and to everyone who's subbed so far, thank you so much for the vote of confidence. I am trying to speed things up and get you guys more episodes more frequently, I promise. Take care everybody, I will see you soon. Take care everybody, I will see you soon. Right, that's that.